guys, and welcome back to my channel. So I am going to be showing you how I make these shoes. Now this is hopefully second time lucky. I have already filmed this video this afternoon, and unfortunately just as I got to the end my phone decided to delete all of the footage, and I went back into the files to see if I could find it in the deleted. Nothing, totally gone. So take two. But that's okay. These were the ones that I made, and I fortunately had enough stuff left to do another set. Now the beauty of these little embellishments is that you can use up all your scraps. So I actually wasn't sure whether I'd have enough, but I did. So again, this is something that from the Alicia's Crafty Hoplop video of the things that I sent her. These are some of the things that people wanted to see, you know, how I did them and how I put them together. They are just die cuts, but it is about those little finishing touches. So it's the things like the, you know, lacing the actual shoes and textures and inking and things like that, that just sort of, for me, bring them to life a little bit. So I am going to start with the male shoes, and then we will do the ladies' ones after that. So those are the ones that I've already got made, and you can see there's a slight difference. So this one is from the first ones that I made, and that's quite sort of flat. It's still got some dimension to it because I've thicked it up, and obviously it's got the laces and things like that. And this is shoe number 2, and as you can see on that, I've just put the upper on just on some cardboard, just to raise the upper a little bit. And that just gives it, again, just that little bit more dimension. I like both, to be honest. Yeah, they're slightly different, but both cool. So I don't think it really matters what way you do it, to be fair. So the die is this die set. So this is what you get. So you get a left and a right upper. But the sole, you get just the one, and the bit that's got the tongue on it, that you only get one of those as well. So you have to think about the way that you cut it. So for example, this is the top piece for the sole of my shoe, and obviously that's the pattern of the paper. In order to get the pattern on both the left and the right shoe, one of them I've cut with the pattern facing up, that one, but then the other one I turned the cardstock over and cut it with the pattern facing down, and that way when I turn it over and I've got the pattern, I've then got a left and a right shoe. It would be the same for this as well if you're using a pattern paper. I'm not for this one, so it doesn't matter for me, but if you are using a pattern paper, then obviously you need to do the same thing with that die. Obviously those, it cuts a left and a right, so you would just cut it as you would normally cut a die. So those are the bits that we get. So, because I like mine to be quite thick, I have also die cut the sole piece out of some cereal box, and that will just make it for make it a bit more of a sturdy embellishment once it's all finished. So all I'm going to do to start with is just glue the two pieces of the sole together. So the patterned piece and the cereal box piece, and I've just put glue on the wrong side. That's really helpful. That's because I'm not thinking about something else. Right, I'll just let that glue dry for a second. Cut another one. Right, so get it right and put the glue on the cereal box. And the reason for that is because what I don't want is when we're finished, I don't want to be able to see the cereal box. And now my glue's all clogged up. Oh, bear with me, guys. Okay, try again. That's better. It's coming out now. Oh no, clogged again. Do you know, I never have problems with this glue bottle. Now all of a sudden it doesn't want to work. There we go. Okay. So the beauty of using the white glue when it works is that you can move the piece about for, you know, for a reasonable length of time really, so that you can get it reasonably well lined up like that. And what you want is to not really be able to see any of the cereal box, obviously. And then I tend to pop them under something heavy just to while the glue sets off. So that's just obviously all my acrylic stamping blocks. They work really well for weighting things down. And then I'm just doing the same on this other one. Just a little bit of glue and line it all up the way that I want it. So you can see there's just that little lip. So I'm just going to push it and pull it and move it into place. That's my daughter bringing me a cup of tea. Thank you, Lauren. There we go. Oops. Wobbling the camera. Okay, and again, I'm just going to pop that under there to set off. So this is the little uppers that I have die cut, and if you can see, they do look like leather, and that's because I've used a scrap of wallpaper. It was actually a leather effect. I'm just seeing if I can see a piece of it anyway. Leather effect wallpaper that I got last year. I got it in black and I got it in this brown from, I want to say, the range, and I took a sample of it, and I wish I'd bought a roll of it because I do really like it, and I've got a really good size sample, and I've used a piece of it on a spine for a mini album, and I use it for embellishments quite frequently. So I wish I'd actually bought a roll of it, but never mind. I've still got quite a bit of my sample left, so I just keep using it. But obviously that is quite thin and flimsy. So all I've done is the cardstock, which is quite thick, that I've used for this part of the shoe. I've put a bit of paper tape, a bit of double-sided tape on, put the wallpaper sample on the top, and then use that to cut it out. So it is actually quite sturdy. So I do just want to do a little bit of inking. I tend to use inking quite a lot on most things that I make. I think you get a nice effect. Let's just see if I can put my light on, see if it's starting to go a bit darker. That's better. There we go. Yeah, so if I can hold the piece. It won't be really thick, won't be really noticeable. It's just a thin little edge all the way round, and on dark things like this it's not as noticeable, but what it does do is it just covers any raw edges, and if you have done like I do, put two pieces together, it just helps to bring those two pieces together a bit more. So the other thing that you need to think about is when you're going to put these bits on, obviously there's a right and a wrong way because there's a left and a right foot. So what you want to do is just make sure that you have got it so that you know that you're inking the right way. So I line them up and then ink the side that you're going to see. And again, it doesn't add lots and lots, and you may not even be able to see it on the camera, but in real life it really does add just a little bit of sort of shadowing and depth to that little piece, and I think that it's all these little tiny details that just make them look really cool, and it's the detail that I like. I'm sort of obsessed with working in detail. I like small scale and working in miniature, so I really enjoy things like this. So I'm just going round the edge with the tool on the sole. Again, you won't see a lot of this because a lot of this is going to be covered by the pieces that are going on next, but again, it just sort of brings together the pieces that you've just glued together, and helps them look more cohesive, and anything that does show obviously looks in keeping with everything else. So the other thing that I want to do is lace my shoes. Again, it's the detail. So I've just got a couple of pieces of thread. This is just like I bought it for Kumihimo braiding, but it's a little bit thin. But I find it really useful for lots of projects. Now, to make this easy to thread, you could obviously use a needle and thread if you've got a needle that will go up through, and that you can get the thickness of your thread through. Now, this is quite a thin thread, so I could use a needle on this one, but this one was slightly thicker on this little shoe. And I would have struggled to get a needle and that thread through these little holes. So what I've done is almost create eglets on the end of the thread. So the way to do that is just to take some white glue. I tend to put a big blob of it there, and then I run the end of the thread through the white glue and then just leave it to dry. And it just creates a slightly firmer end to the thread, which then allows you to thread it without too much difficulty. So all I'm going to do is lace these up like you would a pair of shoes if you were just lacing up your shoes, and then I'll tie them in a little bow at the top, like that. There we go. So it is a little bit time consuming, and they are a bit fiddly, and that's why I tend to, you know, I don't make hundreds and hundreds of them, because they do take quite a bit of time, but I really like the finished effect, and I like sending things to people that I'd like to receive, so I always think that little bit of time is time well spent. So all I'm going to do then is just put a little knot at the top and then knot it again, and that just helps to, when I come to tie the bow, it'll be just a little bit easier because I'm not trying to keep this bit tight at the same time. So then I've got the laces laced across there, so then it is just a case of tying a bow. And then I tend to put a little bit of glue just to stop that bow from, because as you can see, particularly with this, because it's quite silky thread, it comes undone quite easily. So I usually put a little bit of white glue in where I'm knotting, and then as you pull the knot tight, it tends to stay there because of the glue. And then the same when I've done the bow, I'll put a bit of white glue in the bow, and that'll just stop it from unraveling. So I'm going to go off camera and do it because it's really fiddly, and I'm struggling to do it in frame. So I'll go and tie a little bow on this, and I will lace this one, and then we'll come back. Okay, so I've laced both of those. I have tied a little bow in them, and I have put a spot of glue just on that knot of the bow, so hopefully that will hold. Having a mouthful of my tea. So the next thing is to start building the shoe up. Now, this is the sort of front part of the upper, and it's also the bit that's got the tongue of the shoe on it. So all I'm going to do before I start putting this together is just put just a little bit of shape, do it in the camera, just on that bit there, because that's the bit that's going to stick up through the shoe. And the same on this one, again making sure that you are shaping the right side of the piece. There we go. So they're going to sit like that. So I can glue those in place. So again, just using my white glue because it gives me that manoeuvrability. I'm going to just get them where I want them to be. There we go. And you can see you've got that little bit of dimension, and that's the tongue that's going to be sticking up under the laces. There we go. And then we're just going to glue that bit onto there. And the same thing again, just make sure that that all lines up nicely. There you go. And one of the fun things that I've done on my shoes is put the shoe size on, which I thought was fun. So I'm going to do the same again on these ones. And if you do it at this point, you're not trying to get in to the shoe once you've put the other bits on, and it makes it a bit more fiddly. So these are size 12s. So then we've got this bit. I'm going to first of all snip off some of that thread from the laces, and obviously you can leave them as long or as short as you want them to be. And this is the bit where you can choose to either have them lay flat like this, which is what I've done with these ones, or whether to pop a little bit of card under or a foam dot or something, so that they end up with a little bit of more dimension like these ones. And like I say, they're both quite cool in their own way. You can see that one, it's just got that little bit more lift to it, whereas that one's flat. So I'm going to put the card in. And to do that, all I've done is taken some circles of packaging card that I've just punched out with my circle punch, with a small circle punch. And I just put a little piece on either side of the shoe here, like that. Now, one of the things that I found with this particular shoe die that I've got is you can just see that little bit there when the shoe's finished, when you've made it up. So I've just been, with a coordinating marker, I've just been going in and just putting a bit of ink there, like that. There we go. There, that's better. Okay. And then if I do this one, so again, I'm just going to snip the laces down to size and put a little bit of the, it's a bit flat, a little bit of the packaging, snip them in half. I'm going to use my glue gun just because my white glue obviously takes a minute to just grab, and we want to move on. So the thing to just be mindful of is just make sure that whatever you're using to raise your this part of your shoe up, it's not sticking over the holes for the laces, because otherwise when you turn it over you'll see whatever it is you've stuck it down with. So then we just take our uppers and glue them down. So you can use whatever you want. I'm going to just do it with a little bit of hot glue. The only thing with the hot glue is you've got to work quite quick, obviously, because it does set really quickly. I'm sort of getting used to these now because I've made quite a few of them, so I think I can get away with it. And then I'm just going to put a bit of white glue underneath because that's now grabbed. Push that one down. And that's it. So that's that one. And then the same for this one. Ooh, a bit of glue on the end of my glue gun. Just a little bit of hot glue just around the edges of there. And then I'm going to line that up. Take any excess glue away. Oops. And if you do get any excess glue that's frustrating you, remember, rather than picking and pulling at it, because that can pull off the surface of your card, just blow over it with your heat tool and get like your pokey tool or something in there and just pick it up with that. And that way you won't damage the cardstock that you're using. And there we go. So that's my little pair of men's shoes ready to go. And then we've got the ladies. So this is the set that I used for the ladies' shoes. So you can see you've got all these elements here. So you've got the sole, that's the inner part of the sole, the bow on the front, that's took me ages to work out what that was. It's the ankle strap. And then we've got this piece that makes the actual front of the shoe. So the pieces that I've cut are these. Just move those out the way. So these are what we are now creating. So these are the ones that I made that obviously the camera lost the footage of. So for the soles, I cut 4 pieces so that I've got 2 for each shoe. Again, that's just to give it some thickness. You could, because this is reasonably sort of thinnish cardstock. It is cardstock, but it is quite thin. You could do the cereal box again and layer up 2 layers with your cereal box if you wanted to. These are just about thick enough, particularly when you've got this bottom piece on. So I haven't bothered. I've just done them in the white. What I've gone for is it's like a white. It's got like a linen texture to it. It's slightly satin. And it's got this linen texture to it. And again, texture really helps to make something look that little bit sort of special, rather than just being all single colour, solid, flat, plain colours. So I've also cut 2 of the ankle straps, and again, that's just to give it some lift off the page. I've cut 2 of the soles to go on the inside, and I've embossed these just with an embossing folder. And then I've cut 2 of the bows, and again I've embossed them. But what I did with this, because I was finding that because the bow's really delicate, if I die cut it and then embossed it, it was embossing it really deeply, and the bow was sort of like breaking apart in my hands as I was trying to make it. So the way I got around that was to emboss the cardstock first and then die cut it. Now you don't get as deep an embossing on the bow as you do on the sole, but it was the only way I could do it without it being really, really sort of fragile, and that's still sort of usable now. I can still work with that. And then I've cut 2 of the uppers, so these are obviously the uppers. Now the thing to think about with when you're cutting the uppers is, as you see on the die, it's almost like in 4 pieces. You've got this piece that folds over to create the toe, and these bits that go underneath. So this middle piece here is going to be the bit that you see. So when you're lining your die up on your paper, if you've got anything that's got a bit of a pattern to it, like mine, where it's got the flowers, what I've tried to do is line it up so that you get at least one full flower head in that centerpiece there. Okay. So again, just as with the men's shoes, the first thing to do is to layer it up to get your thickness. So again, I'm just using white glue to give me that wiggle room, and I'm just going to layer 2 together. Now with these mules, there isn't a left and a right like there is with the men's shoes. They're both just one. It's all one design. That's it. And then I'm going to do the same with this. And with the inner sole and then the front piece on, and obviously the glue in between, it just thicks it up enough that it makes it a nice sturdy embellishment. So there we go. As you can see, covered in ink and glue and stuff. I do apologise. And I've got super dry hands at the moment because I'm washing them all the time, especially at work, and I'm having to use alcohol gel and that at work. It just means that my hands, I suffer with psoriasis on my hands anyway, but they are just absolutely falling to bits at the moment. There we go. There we go. So it can be a little bit tedious, I suppose, but I quite enjoy, because you haven't got to think too much. It's just a case of, you know, going through and adding pieces once you've got your design down. So once I'd sort of made a few and I knew how I liked them to be, they were quite sort of easy to make. There we go. So I'm just going to put these soles under the ink blocks, under the stamping blocks, just to make sure that they glue properly, they glue down flat. Right, so we'll just leave that for a minute. So then we've got these pieces. And again, I like to do just a bit of inking. So I've taken a bit of dried marigold. I'm just having a look to see if there's another peachy colour, but I don't think there is. I've got tattered rose, which is a little bit peachy. But I think it'll probably be a bit too pale. But I'm going to try it because on the other ones, the dried marigold was a little bit orangey. So let's have a look and see what the tattered rose is like. Yeah, it is picking it up, but only... Yeah, no, it is. Yeah, I'm going to go with that. It's very subtle, but that's what I want. I do want it to be quite subtle. And you can see that's ripped slightly on there because this embossing folder obviously embosses really deeply. So it's, you know, something just to be mindful of. It won't matter because I'm going to glue it flat anyway. But yeah, it's just something to think about. But the nice thing about embossing is you can run over the top of it with your ink and it'll just pick out the embossing a little bit. There you are. So if you look at the difference between, that's it, you know, it looks cool just as it is. But then if you look at it next to the one that's got the inking, it's very subtle, but it really does add a little bit of additional dimension to the piece. And for me, it's all these little tiny elements that build up over the, you know, the piece that you're creating, and that ultimately what will make it into something a little bit more, I don't know, something a bit different. And I love that you can, you know, the thing I love most about die cuts is you get to pick the colours, you get to pick the textures, you get to pick, you know, extras, because I'm sure that, you know, there are things that you would do with these dies that I haven't thought to do, and that's the beauty of them. You know, everybody does something slightly different. There we go. So that's that one. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the bows. I am going to give them a little bit of inking all the way around the edge. Now, I'm not going to lie, these bows are fiddly. They're very small, and it's a one-piece bow, so you've got to sort of fold it and then fold it back on itself. So they're not the easiest thing in the world to create. But I do like the look of them, so that's why I persevere. So again, I'm just giving it a... keep knocking my camera, I do apologise. I'm just going to hit it over the top there with the ink pad, and that will just help to bring out the actual embossing on the die cut, like that. Okay, if you don't want to go to the faff of making these bows, because it is faffy, you could go for something like these, which are little flat back pearl type bows. And if you just put into AliExpress something along the lines of resin bows or flat back bows, something like that, and there's a plethora to choose from. I tend to go for the pearl, for the creamy colour, the beige ones it's quite often down as, and that's just because I think they go with pretty much anything, rather than having, you know, tons of different colours. And you can always colour these with alcohol markers, but I tend to think the pearl pretty much will go with anything. So you could use those instead, or if you've got some tiny fabric bows or anything like that, or you could just do it without. You don't need to have it at all. Okay, so hopefully these are now done, and I'm just going to flick around the edge again, just with a little bit of that tattered rose. I'm not wanting anything dramatic, you know. The idea is that your eye's not drawn to this inking that we've done. It's there, but it's not there. It's not in your face. It adds something without becoming the centre of attention. There's my other one. There it is. So again, just all the way around the edge like that. Okay, we're getting there. You'll be pleased to know. So then I'm just going to take the sole and glue that in. And that's just a case of lining it up with an even border all the way around the edge. And again, that's why it's good to use the white glue, because you've got that little bit of wiggle room. There we go. And this is where I really think, you know, all the textures of the different cardstocks and that are starting to bring it to life, because you've got that linen texture and a little bit of pearlescent on the white layer, and then you've got the embossed texture on that part. And now we're going to do this piece. So this is the front of the shoe. So you have to fold it. It's a bit like an origami piece. So you start by folding that front piece down, and then you fold one side and then the other, and then what you've got is a little pocket. So I'm going to use a little bit of hot glue just for speed on the video, but you could, you know, obviously you can use white glue as well, but you'd need to just put it under something for a minute to let it set. Now, what you want to make sure of is that you don't get any glue on that inside piece, because this is like a little pocket, and this is one of the tricks to making it look really dimensional. So once you've got it all glued together, I've just got, and this is just a kids glue spreading tool, but it doesn't really matter what it is. You just want something to get in there and start to open that up a little bit and push on the sides and just start rubbing and arching that bit there. And what you've then created is this little pocket that you're going to slip the sole into. Now, I'm just going to, again, hit the edges with a little bit of the same ink that we've used to ink everything else, so the Tattered Rose. And I'm just going to hit all around the edge of that shoe now that we've got that front bit made up. So it's a bit like when you used to make, I don't know, people that are as old as me, finger mice. We used to make finger mice when I was at school, and it's the same concept, same principle. And then if we do the other one, so again we're going to do the same thing. We're going to fold over that toe bit, and then we're going to fold one side and then the other. If your paper, like mine is, it's just cracking slightly. If you do have that, again, if you just put a little bit of water, just to, you know, make it very, very slightly damp, it will just help it to bend without actually cracking. But I don't mind too much, because I'm going to hit it with the ink anyway, and it will just be covered up with the ink. So again, I'm just going to give that a bit of a shape, and I'm going to hit that with the Tattered Rose all the way round, and not forgetting that front part. So those bits are ready. For the bow, this can be quite fiddly. So the way that I tend to do it is I start by folding the tails of the bow forward onto the bow, just like that. Okay. Then I find something that I can use to wrap the bow element around, just to help sort of shape it. Now this one is unfortunately splitting a little bit, and again that's just because of the embossing that I've done. It's easier if you don't use embossed cardstock for this bit. So all I'm doing is sort of rubbing it to give it a bit of a domed appearance. And then all we're going to do is put just a little blob of glue. I'm going to use hot glue, because otherwise you've got to sit and hold it for ages. And you're just going to, with one part, I always do one side at a time, bring it down and meet it in the middle there. And then turn it over and just make sure that it's lined up nicely. And then just squeeze it shut. And then I'm going to do the same with the other side. I'm going to put just a tiny glob of glue there. I'm going to bring that bit forward. I'm just going to make sure it's all lining up. And I'm going to hold it. Now this one has split, but that's okay. all I'm going to do is I'm going to bend that round and I'm going to put a little bit of white glue on there and just hold that in place while that glue just grabs. And like I say, it's easier if you don't use an embossed cardstock, but I like to make life difficult for myself. So there we go. So again, I'm just going to fold that one forward and fold that one forward. And then I'm just going to start running this tool just on the bit that's going to be the actual bow. There we go. And again, I'm going to put just a little bit of glue. Bring it forward and bend the little tail back. And again, just a little glob of glue. Bend it down. Make sure it looks right from the other side. And there we go. And then you can use a something round to just round that back out again. So something just a bit thicker. And if you just run that through, it'll just round the bow part back out. And there we go. So that's my bow. So that one's obviously cracked a little bit, but that's okay. We'll make it work. There you go. You can see that that's now sticking back together again at the back there, and you won't really notice it once it's all part of the project. There we go. And like I say, if that's too fiddly, just use the flat back ones, because they would look equally as pretty. Putting those on would look just as lovely. Or you could use, like I say, fabric bows or something. Okay, so now we're going to actually make the shoe. So what I'm going to do is, again with the circles of cardboard that I've got, I'm going to pop some up the front of my shoe here. Now you could use foam squares or, you know, whatever you've got really. But I'm going to push mine. I know mine are slightly big, so I'm going to push them on. And then I am just going to trim mine very, very slightly. The bits that I can see, I'm just going to trim them off. Like that. And then what that allows me to do is push that in there. And you've got a little piece of cardboard which just helps to keep that domed shape in there. So squeeze in a little bit of the white glue on the inside, the bottom inside of that pocket. And then push your shoe all the way down and in and press that flat. There we go. Now, because we've only put glue on the bottom, what it'll allow you to do, once everything's sort of set, the glue's gone off, it'll allow you to just squeeze on the sides there and it'll just pop that dimension back up. We're then going to sort of glue on our ankle strap. So I'm going to put mine up like that. That's it. And I'm going to do the same with this one. I'm going to just put a bit of glue on there, stick it on, trim off the excess. And then I want some white glue all in the bottom inside of my pocket. Push that in together and push it down. And the little piece of cardboard inside there just stops it being completely compressed flat. So when you send it in the post, even if it gets squished, that little piece of cardboard there will just stop it from going completely flat and make sure that it's still got some dimension when it gets wherever it's going. There we go. glue those bits on like that. And then we've got our little bows. So again, just a little glob of hot glue in the centre there, and stick that wherever you want it. I like mine at the top here. And stick that one on up there. There we go. And then I'm going to find out my box of gemmies. Oh, one of my many boxes of gemmies. It's another one of the things that I can't resist. If I see pretty gems that I don't have, I always buy them. These are my favourite ones at the moment, and these come from the range. When I went down last time, they'd only got this pinky red colour left and blue. Now, thankfully, I did buy 2 or 3 packets of the iridescent white or cleary sort of ones when they had them, because I use them on everything. And I don't know whether they're stopping selling them or whether, but the last few times I've been in, the only ones they've had have been what was left of the pink and blue ones, which are very pretty, but the white ones just go with everything. There we go. So a little gem in the centre there. And centre of that one. And there you go. That's it. So, you can now squeeze on the sides a little bit, and it'll just give it a little bit of the dimension back. And that's how I made my shoes. So bring the chaps ones back in. Ooh. Got glue strings getting me. There we go. Ooh. Glue strings getting everything. There. So that's them. That's the little shoes. And like I say, you know, it's die cuts. I do like to work with die cuts a lot, as I'm sure you've noticed if you've been on my channel for a while. I'm always on the lookout for interesting dies. I quite like the sort of this miniature type of die. I do use them in lots and lots of my crafting. I tend to use dies quite a lot. So yeah, always on the lookout for cool, interesting dies. I hope you've enjoyed a quick look at how I put mine together. I say quick look, this video is nearly 45 minutes long. I apologise. If there is anybody that has stayed for the full length of this video, thank you very, very, very much. I really do appreciate it. I've noticed I've had quite a few new subscribers again just recently. I'm just blown away, absolutely blown away. That there are people that want to spend time with me and, you know, create along with me. So, yeah, it's been fun to make it twice. There you go. That's how it goes. So I was hoping to do my art journal page and haven't had the opportunity to yet, but I'm going to have a quick tidy up now and see if I've got time to do that one as well. Before I pack up for the night. I am at work tomorrow. I don't normally work Mondays and Tuesdays, but obviously with the coronavirus, everything's gone a bit haywire at work. I'm a nurse for our local community nursing team. I work for our quality department, and at the moment we are helping to get everybody ready to be redeployed if we need it. So I'm actually teaching people how to use our clinical documentation system and how to record things in a clinical record at the moment, but that has meant swapping my days here and there. So I normally have a Monday and a Tuesday off, but I'm working Monday and Tuesday this week, so but I have got other days off later in the week, so it's fine. We've all got to do what we've got to do at the moment, so yeah, all a bit chaotic. Anyway, I will go off and get tidied up and get this video uploaded, and then I will be back probably in the next day or two with my first journal page for my hashtag A to Z art journal 2020. I'm trying to remember what my hashtag was, but anyway, I'll see you all for that very, very soon. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you in the next crafty video. Bye for now.